tell us a little bit more about your book and what I would really label this phenomenon where there's such a high level of outmigration.
Well, I put the book together as part of an interest that I had as a professor at Dickinson State. I've been here 22 years now, and I'm kind of observing over the years the students that graduate from Dickinson State, who goes and who stays. And my sense was that the people who are high-risk takers, highly motivated, creative people tended to be the ones that left the state after graduation. And the more risk-averse individuals tended to be the ones who would stay after they graduated from college. And there's actually 2 points where we're concerned about outmigration in North Dakota, and the 2 sort of leak points, they call them, are when high school students graduate from high school. They're 18 years old and they go to college out of state, and the vast majority of the time they never come back. Or after college graduation, if they go to college in North Dakota, they graduate, get a job out of the state, and again, there is the boomerang theory that people talk about a lot, that there's, this percentage of people that go out of the state, have a little life for 3 or 4 years, get married, and come back to the state to raise their family because of what a wonderful, family-oriented area the Midwest is. But that's a pretty small percentage, and that's really what I wanted to study in the book.
So, Dr. Deborah, you talked about, look, this is some of the reasons that they leave, risk averseness versus, hey, I want to go out there and have more risk. I want to leave the state. But you've also come up through some research about this rural growth trifecta, a way to keep young, talented people in the state. Tell us more about what that is and what we can start to do here in North Dakota to keep people around.
Right. This was some research that was completed in 2010 by the USDA that I ran across. Very thorough, very well done. Most of your listeners are probably familiar with the Richard Florida work about the creative class, and he said that economic development comes when you have a creative class, artists, entrepreneurs, lawyers, engineers, but he never really looked at rural areas. And a couple of folks from the USDA, David McGranahan and Tim Wojan, looked at how does this apply to rural areas? Does the creative class bring in job growth, bring in economic growth? And they actually found out, they call it the rural trifecta, the rural growth trifecta, because they said you need 3 things. You need amenities, things that are like outdoor activities, things that young people are interested in doing. That brings in, and keeps, so I was going to talk about that too, the creative class within the state. The creative class is entrepreneurial. Creative people start new businesses. Creative people think of new ideas. And if you have in your rural area what they refer to as an entrepreneurial context, that's the trifecta. Amenities, bring in and keep the creative class. And if your state or your rural area has an entrepreneurial context, you'll have economic growth. Now, what I mean by entrepreneurial context, and one of the things that we talked about a lot on Tuesday at the North Dakota 2.0 conference that you referred to, was how do you build that in a rural area? Because typically in rural areas, like rural North Dakota, failure is shunned. We say, you started a business and you went bankrupt. That's a horrible thing. And in a sense, success is kind of shunned too. You started a business and you became a multi-billionaire in our little town, you're shunned as well. Where in hotbeds of entrepreneurship, you look at Silicon Valley, places like that, it's almost a badge of honor that you went bankrupt 3 or 4 times, right? But, in maybe Mott, North Dakota, or Kildare, or, name your little town, that's not necessarily the case. So we need to, I think, work on those amenities, work on having activities that young people, that Generation Y, will keep them here. But also, I think even more importantly, or just as important, is that entrepreneurial context, that acceptance and promotion of the young kid at 22 or 23 that comes to your local bank and says, hey, I need a $10,000 loan, a $100,000 loan, I've got a great idea.